This is a Calumet and Hecla Mining Company's Torch Lake Locomotive, the oldest regularly operating steam locomotive in the U.S. I'm Darren, and this is the Industrial Revolution.
Not only is this the oldest regularly operating locomotive in the U.S., being built in 1873, it's also the last surviving Mason Bogie locomotive. We'll come back to that part in a bit, but it's actually a pretty unusual design. First, though, Torch Lake here is currently running at Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan. It's a 064T locomotive with 0 leading or pilot wheels, 6 drivers, and 4 trailing wheels, and the T means it's a tank locomotive, so no tender. It has 41-inch drivers and a max speed of 40 miles per hour, typically running around 100 psi. It's currently running standard gauge, 4 foot 8.5 inches or 1435 millimeters, but it actually began life a bit narrower at 4 foot 1 inch or 1245 millimeters. It was built by Mason Machine Works in Taunton, Massachusetts, and spent most of its first career as a switcher, but occasionally was also called on to haul copper ore on the main line for the Hecla and Torch Lake Railroad, which is part of the Calumet and Hecla Mining Company, in the northernmost part of Michigan, up on the Keweenaw Peninsula. This part of the state, being completely surrounded by Lake Superior, is known for getting a lot of snow, typically around 17 feet or more than 5 meters per year. Fortunately, one characteristic of the Mason Fairley design is that it was found to be exceptional at snow fighting, even being able to fight through snow at times over the top of the cab. Unfortunately, however, they were also known to have somewhat poor tracking, no doubt at least partially due to the lack of leading or pilot wheels, and that means it was somewhat prone to derailment. In December 1981, Torch Lake demonstrated that by actually derailing here at Greenfield Village. Being a cold, snowy day, it may have been caused by ice in a switch, but in any case, due to the low speeds they operate here in the village, Torch Lake experienced only minimal damage, no one was hurt, and it was back to work quickly. So about that Mason Bogie, sometimes called a Mason Fairley design. The design never really seemed to take off. Reported numbers vary a bit, but it seems only 148 of these Mason Bogie locomotives were actually built in various gauges. First, the locomotive is considered to be an articulated design. Unlike the huge articulated locomotives you're probably familiar with, like the Allegheny or Big Boy though, there's still only one set of drivers, but in this case, all 6 drivers, along with cylinders, pistons, and all the running gear, are actually mounted on a truck or bogie and are free to rotate under the boiler. To make that work, the steam actually passes through the center of that bogie via a ball joint and is then distributed from there to the 2 cylinders. To prevent the used steam from the cylinders, I use a sliding seal in the cylinder saddle, which then routes it up through the smoke box. If it sounds like this would cause problems, well, you're right, it did. The design was notorious for having problematic steam leaks. The system also took up so much space between the drivers that the valve gear, and even the reversing shaft, had to be moved to the outside, with the reversing shaft actually going along the top of the boiler with a long link running down to the radius rod. It's the only locomotive design ever to do this. Torch Lake continued to work on the Keweenaw Peninsula until 1933 and was the last steam locomotive to leave the region. While driving across the bridge off the peninsula, Engineer Edward Carter blew a long, sad whistle, believing it to be the last time steam would ever be used there. Torch Lake was then placed in storage and forgotten about for more than 3 decades, till 1966, when it was brought out, cosmetically restored, and displayed for the Calumet and Hecla Mining Company's 100th anniversary. Following the anniversary, Torch Lake made its way down to Greenfield Village in November 1969, where it began operational restoration. One of the biggest parts of that restoration, of course, was a new boiler. Although they can now build their own boilers here in the village, at the time they had to send out for one, and it arrived here in 1971. The original boiler, seen here, remains in the village, along with an impressive collection of other boiler designs behind the Armington and Sims machine shop. Unfortunately, most village visitors just walk right by this collection, never taking notice. They also converted Torch Lake from burning wood to burning oil at this time, although that didn't last, and they later converted it to burn coal, matching the other 2 steam locomotives in use here at Greenfield Village. On July 3, 1971, at 98 years old, Torch Lake made its triumphant return and began its new career pulling passenger trains, which it's been doing now for more than 50 years. Let's go ahead and take a ride. One of the unique things about Torch Lake, as a tank locomotive, there's no tender, and the back is actually pretty low, so if you can get right up front, you can get a good look at the cab operations for this locomotive. It's a typical 2-person crew, engineer on the right, fireman on the left. I'll do another video later on the cab operations of a steam locomotive, but while we watch, we can cover the basics. There's a lot of controls here, but there's really only a few in constant use by the engineer. The cord from the ceiling, of course, is the steam whistle. There's 4 levers the engineer uses a lot. The large horizontal lever here is the throttle. The large vertical reverser lever, also called the Johnson bar. And the 2 small horizontal levers, which are for the brakes. The train brake, which controls the brakes on all the cars, and the independent or engine or locomotive brake, which is the brake just for the engine, and if you have one, also for the tender. The fireman has to keep a close eye on boiler pressure and water level, using the injector to pump water from the tender to the boiler as needed, and of course, shoveling coal. The fireman shovels tons of coal. Steam trains also go through a lot of water. Here you can see them refilling at the station. They use an additive in the water, which helps to prevent mineral buildup in the boiler and reduces foaming and corrosion. This is fairly common and really helps to extend the life of the boilers.
Well, we're underway now for the main game fire station. This Street Depot is one of the original 28 buildings in the village back on October 21st, 1919. Brick building and heading to the left is the Toledo Ed Milwaukee Roundhouse, originally built in 1884 in Marshall, Michigan, now in Northwest. We were able to salvage anything else structurally sound out of the old building, included in this one and opened it up in 2000. We do all of our service repair and maintenance on our 3 coal-fired steam others in our building, and we work for your business. The other side of the roundhouse, behind the trees and bushes, perfectly parallel. And the area can clearly last long out of the evening. That's all over the world. The life department of working fire district will be off. Right there. Make the light turn up the light.
Been running up here at Greenfield Village now for 55 years and still running strong. Torch Lake Locomotive is the Industrial Revolution. Hey, wait, before you go, I need your help to keep going here. So as you can see, I'm out here today in Smoky Mountains, filming on location. Almost every video I do is on location, and unfortunately that's not cheap. So if you could help me out, I'd really appreciate it. There's some easy ways to do that. First way to help me out is completely free. Just hit like and subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Draw more people to the channel. That's great. That helps a lot. Also, you can comment. I love reading the comments, and I've had some great ideas from those comments, in fact. Finally, if you can help out on Patreon, Industrial Revolution, at patreon.com/Industrial Revolution, or hit Super Thanks, or something I just added just before recording this, have a affiliate store set up on the link to the video on the channel or on the closing screen here. Hit the shop button. That'll take you out to my webpage. Follow any of those links out to Amazon or other sites, and the channel will get a percentage of your entire purchase, even if you don't purchase that thing you look at. So lots of cool stuff over there. All of those really help the channel out a lot. Thanks for coming again and watching the video, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.